Welcome to the Optimal Bio podcast. At Optimal Bio, we don't just balance your hormones, we balance your whole body. Our conversations range from nutrition to medicine with an emphasis on wellness tips to support your health journey. If you like what you hear, find us on the web at optimalbio.com and follow the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Thank you for joining another episode of the Optimal Bio podcast. Today I am joined with Brit, and we're going to talk all things holidays so you can enjoy the holidays but still feel good and not feel like when the New Year's comes you have to lose those 20 pounds. So Brit.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me back.
Little by little, we'll add some more things. So if you guys have any option or ideas of what you want us to talk about, let us know.
Please, yeah, write it in, send it in, call it in.
So I guess we can start with, what do you see with your clients, around the holidays?
Yeah, I feel like anxiety is a big one for a lot of different reasons, mainly because, a lot of people either are feeling better from, let's just say, gut stuff or weight loss or, the things that they're working on, or have these goals in mind. And then they think that the holidays are going to derail them or leave them feeling not so good, mentally, physically, all those things. So I think anxiety is a big one when it comes to the holidays, just like pre-prepping and getting ready for derailment that they think is going to happen. So yeah, I would see that. What about you? Do you feel like there's certain things like themes that come up?
Yeah, I feel like kind of what you said, that going into the holiday season, starting with like Halloween, it's like an excuse to eat bad or eat in excess. And when it really is like Halloween, one, I think is a kid holiday. Two, Christmas a day, Thanksgiving's a day. And obviously, depending on how your family celebrates, it could be a few days. But why do you want to feel bad when there's so many options and ways to enjoy the holidays, but then still feel good? I don't understand why. I think too with vacation, it's like okay to eat terrible. And I'm like, to each their own. Like, do whatever you want, but also knowing you can enjoy the holidays, enjoy a vacation, but still feel good on the vacation, on the holiday, and then when you come back.
Totally. Okay, yeah. So I feel like those are the two big buckets, right? Those people that are like anxious about it because they don't want to necessarily throw off the routine that they're in. And then the other people who are like, oh, I'll just wait. Or, I'll wait until X, Y, and Z after the holidays, after vacation, after all of the things, the parties, everything to like start, quote unquote.
Yeah. And they still probably have the underlying anxiety too, because no one wants to feel like that.
100%. 100%. Yeah. I'm going to throw my husband under the bus a little bit, but he is definitely in that second camp and will always like, yeah, he'll always be like, and he has me as a wife, but he still like, will be like, oh, I'll wait until after this. Like this past weekend, they had a boys weekend and then it's Thanksgiving and then we're going away for Christmas. And so it's just like one thing after the next. And I'm like, are you going to go back to the gym at any point? And he's like, I'll wait. And I think it's that underlying anxiety that he knows like the holidays are coming and it's going to throw off his routine. But then I'm in his ear being like, it doesn't have to throw off your routine. But I feel like people don't want to hear or choose not to listen to like how you can really allow the holidays to fit into your current routine and still end up feeling great while simultaneously enjoying them and enjoying the food, enjoying your company, enjoying your vacation, whatever, right? But still sticking to what you know to make you feel best. And then to set yourself up for success post all of this, right? Because it's going to be much harder to quote unquote get going and start when you feel like crap versus like taking these little steps now to start to feel better while enjoying the holiday season.
I think back like before, like I knew I couldn't eat gluten, like when I was like younger or just, later. And I vividly remember like just feeling kind of like in a haze, nauseous, like a headache. And I'm like, that's so fascinating. Like I can remember that when I was like 9, right? And when I feel like then it's the same type of feeling, you're just kind of in a haze.
Maybe that's why you don't like Thanksgiving food so much. It's because you kind of like relate it back to not feeling so great.
Yes. Oh, 100%. But I think too, I think we could talk about this in circles, but it's like you can feel good and enjoy life. And so why would you not want to? Um, and I think maybe too people don't realize, right? There's different options, or maybe they need just someone to be like, stick to your routine, or what are, small things that are big things and can help them feel better or not overeat, day to day.
I agree. I agree. And yeah, I want to get into like these small things that people can, take with them through the holiday season, not just the holidays, but I feel like a lot of times these things can be helpful navigating holidays, vacations, all of that. But you're right. I feel like it might just be people not being aware that like you can still manage to enjoy food and holidays without feeling like you just ate a year's worth of food in one sitting at the end, or just having somebody to remind them like it's gonna be okay, like you can feel good at the end, and maybe you're not feel optimal, but you can still stick to some different tips and techniques to allow you to feel decent post holidays. So, but it's so interesting that like you vividly remember not feeling great and now you don't really love a Thanksgiving food. So I find that like that is common though, when you typically had I don't know, an illness that was undiagnosed, or even disordered eating, like things when you struggle with food in the past, and still to this day it can be, stressful and anxiety producing having holidays. So hopefully we can talk about ways to just calm that anxiety and work towards feeling, decent at the end of the meal and happy.
And I think too, we talk about why education's so important. So like understanding how food affects you, it can cause anxiety, it can cause depression, it can cause obviously physical symptoms, headaches, stomach ache, all of that. But I think the more you like learn about it, then hopefully it will help you make, better decisions. Because like, oh, I eat this, I may feel more anxious tomorrow, right? And it's just like that effect. And I was talking to someone the other day that he started, really focusing on just eating protein and for the past few months. And he had a donut the other day and was so sick. And I was like, yeah, I was like, and think about what when your body's used to that, right? That it can you don't feel good, but you don't realize so once you start taking it away, then it's a reminder to you, but also to your body, like this is what it's doing, nothing positive.
Oh, 100%. This is like a totally different topic, but like I work with my clients a lot on reintroductions of food, because I find that a lot of times the reintroduction phase is kind of skipped. So a lot of practitioners will do like elimination diets and stuff like that. And then that's it. And people will start to feel better, but then they reintroduce the food kind of all at once. And will leave them being like totally destroyed, like feeling, just completely out of it. But then it's like, well, what caused that, right? If you are taking away some different foods and you start to reintroduce all of them at the same time, you're probably not going to feel your best, right? We need to go systematically reintroduce it. But yeah, I think it's so interesting. A lot of times people don't necessarily realize how bad they feel on a day-to-day basis until they start removing certain foods, and are allowed to feel, better. But yeah, I talk about this a lot with clients. They're like, why do I feel like I'm the only one with X, Y, and Z problems? I'm like, you're not. You're just in tune with your body. You realize how food is impacting you and making you feel. And so you're choosing to eliminate those foods or reduce them, and, really balance out your plate and make sure that you're making these efforts to feel your best. Whereas like, I feel like the majority of the population are preconditioned to feel not so great, because they're just not aware of, yeah.
Or like people who try to eat healthy, try to focus on whole foods, are like, oh, why are you being so restrictive? Oh, don't you miss eating X? And it's like, no, I actually care about myself. I want to feel good, and this is how it should feel.
Yes. Don't let those people get to you. I feel like this was the biggest thing. And this is on my list to talk about too today, but like, I think that produces a lot of anxiety in people as well, like commenters, right? Their family, friends, the ones that like will comment on what you're eating, whether it's good or bad. And I should say good or bad in quotes, but you know what I mean? Like from their perspective, if it's good enough or bad enough or whatever. But the commenters, I feel like this produces a lot of anxiety. When I started doing like my whole wellness journey way back when, I remember people used to comment on my plates a lot and I would get really anxious and I would start to doubt myself and be like, well, why am I eating this way when everyone else is eating X, Y, and Z? And it was as simple as like making my own, pumpkin pie, like bringing it, making my own salad, like bringing in the salad. So, and I started getting comments from people being like, why are you eating so healthy? Like this is, and it was really anxiety producing. And I feel like still to this day, I hear those comments in my head and I just want to make sure that people are aware that like you're doing yourself a service by eating, the way that makes you feel good. So don't let any of those, commenters derail you or talk you into eating something that's not going to let you feel good. And that's like outside influence, trying to break in. So I think that's a huge one. And for me particularly, like I felt a lot of anxiety growing up around that. And still like, I'm like, when I build my plates, I'm like, oh, are people going to be like, commenting, which is ridiculous because, I know what's going to make me feel good.
Exactly. And like, it's like, all right. Usually people who make comments in life, they're definitely projecting it's nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. Yes. So I think that that's really important. Like, don't let the comments get to you. Just as like, people will be like, oh, when are you going to get married? When are you going to have a baby? Like all those comments that get you. It's the same thing. Don't, and I know it's hard. It's way easier said than done to not let those comments affect you. But in terms of food, you know what makes you feel good and leave you feeling the best. And so don't let these outside influences impact that.
Especially in this day and age of focus on self care, eating well and moving your body should be the core of self care. Because you can't, yeah, you can go get a massage. I love a massage, but if I'm not eating well and I'm not moving, getting a massage may feel good for an hour, but it's not going to impact you like it is if you're eating well, if you're moving. It all goes there.
Absolutely. I also think that it's important. I like that because it's like consistency. I like what you just said. And like those are the foundations. I also think it's important to know that, Thanksgiving is just one day. So, for those people who are in it for weight loss, or on that weight loss journey or, body composition journey or anything like that, it is just one day. Now, I think it's the majority of our days and the consistency that add up the most and make the biggest impact in our journey, whether it is like our gut health or weight loss or whatever. So if you do derail from your consistency or you have something that you don't typically eat, that's also okay. We can accept it and we can move on. We don't have to, ruminate over it for months and months and months, thinking it derailed our whole progress or allow it to derail our progress, right? I find that that's also a big thing. People will have the pumpkin pie and then they're like, okay, well, I'll have Oreos next because I've already ruined the day. It doesn't have to be like that. You can have your pumpkin pie and then move on, right? I read somewhere like this great analogy. It was like, if one of your tires is popped, you're not going to slash the other three. No, you're going to fix the tire and then move on, right? You're not going to keep going down that derailing path. So I think that's also really important, especially with the holidays approaching. It's okay to derail a little bit, but know that you shouldn't keep derailing. You can move on and accept what you've done and then keep going with your goals.
And I know we'll get into it, but really like focusing on protein and fats because then when you eat your pumpkin pie, your blood sugar is going to stay constant. It's going to have peaks, of course, but not as big of a peak if you eat pumpkin pie the first thing, because blood sugar plays such a huge role in how you like feel overall, right? Like how you're going to feel during the day, but then what you're going to be craving next. Like you have your proteins, your fats, you're going to be able to have pumpkin pie and then be done with it and then, move on, not craving other things.
Exactly. One of my biggest pieces of advice, yes, I always focus on like plate building, and we can talk a little bit more about this and what I like to teach. But one of my biggest tips in terms of dessert is to eat it following the meal, not like 2 hours down the road. What happens is because you have that protein, that fiber, that fat already in your system from your meal, presumably, right? I'm not presuming you're eating like a whole box of pasta and then having your pumpkin pie. So you're going to have the turkey, you're going to have some gravy, you're going to have some vegetables, so you'll have that already in your system, and it helps blunt that sugar response from the pumpkin pie or ice cream or whatever it is that you're eating. And you'll eat less of it because you'll already be full from your meal. So, not having your dessert like 2 hours later is actually one of the biggest tips that you can take for the holiday season, is really making sure that you're balancing your blood sugar enough so you don't feel those effects of the sugar, but then you can also implement them and enjoy them.
So let's kind of navigate into some tips to navigate the holidays, the holiday parties, the office parties, all of that. So where would you start?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I always see is people like saving up their calories for big parties. If you are not a faster already, starting on a holiday party is probably not going to do you any good. It's probably going to backfire. If you're like, if you're used to skipping meals and that's what you do and that's part of your routine, absolutely keep going. That's your routine. But if you're someone who normally has a big breakfast and then a lunch and like, you really try to space out your meals, let's try to stick to that a little bit better. I think sticking to your routine is always really helpful when it comes to exercise, diet, not trying to save calories to the end, because 99% of the time it backfires. And it will lead to you feeling like you are so full and you'll overeat and you'll feel really, really crappy at the end, most likely. So even if you take your digestive enzymes and bitters and do all the things, if you save your calories, yeah. So I think, my number one piece of advice would be to just try to stick to your habits as best as possible when it comes to diet and exercise. So for me, like, I'll be hosting this year. So I probably won't have my workout class in the morning because I'm going to be prepping food, but you bet you I'm going to go walking or do something outside for at least 30 minutes to try to get some sort of movement in, because that's what makes me feel good. And I'm someone who really likes breakfast. So I'm going to have my typical breakfast of eggs and sourdough toast or whatever it is, right? And some fruit. And that way I won't be starving by the time lunch or dinner comes around, which will help me prevent overeating and feeling like crap at the end. So that's definitely number one.
Right. And, like you said, Thanksgiving's one day. So I'm sure you're going to work out other days this week, right? So it's not, like, oh my God, I'm missing that workout and I'm eating pies. Like, no, back to the consistency thing and planning out your week like normal.
Planning out the week. Yes, I think this is a big one too. Like I often talk about, especially with exercise, I'm planning it out ahead of time. So this will be, even not around the holidays, just normal life. I'll be like, look at your schedule on Sunday night, pick the 3, 4 days, however many days that you want to work out, and schedule it in just like a meeting. The same rules apply for holidays as best as possible, right? So I know I'm not going to go to my workout class on Thursday, and typically Wednesday is my rest day, right? So I am reversing them, and I'm going to go to my workout class on Wednesday and I'm going to rest or have an active recovery day on Thursday. So I think being able to kind of navigate and adjust to which makes you feel better, right? Because you know that you're still sticking to your habits as best as possible. Now, if you can't work out every day, like typical this week, that's also okay. But trying to fit in a little bit of movement from here and there, it's going to do you such a service, because you're going to have better blood sugar control. You're going to have less anxiety. You're going to be able to rev up that metabolism. So you're able to handle digestion of this larger meal a little bit better. So I definitely think that that's helpful.
And our brains love routine. Like they do love routine, even though we may not realize it. So just knowing that, okay, I'm going to work out on Monday and Friday this week, right? It's just already in your head.
Already in your head, yeah. And that way you stick to it a little bit better when you commit to things, just like a meeting, right? Like it's very rare that you're going to be like, oh, I can't make this meeting when you plan it out, right? And of course, sometimes adjust, but then you reschedule it. And that's the way that it should be for exercise too. You can always reschedule it to a different time or a different place. Just trying to fit it in as best as possible and stick to your routine. So yeah, if you're, someone who likes to eat meals, still eat your meals. And that way you're less likely to overdo it when the big meals come, whether that's a holiday party or Thanksgiving or Christmas, it still applies for sure.
And then you mentioned like making your plate. So, what are options or how, do you make your plate, finding healthy alternatives? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have lots of thoughts. I think that the one thing that I teach, it's super basic, but it works a lot, is the plate method. And so when I talk about, weight management or blood sugar balance, or navigating parties or restaurants, I find a lot of times the plate method is really successful in helping. So if you envision your plate, you can split that plate right up the middle. Half of your plate should be your non-starchy vegetables. So if we think about it just from a Thanksgiving perspective, I'll give some examples to make it, a little bit easier to envision. But you can have, your Brussels sprouts or your green beans or salad. Really making sure that that half of your plate is that non-starchy vegetables to allow you to have a little bit of increase in fiber, which is going to help you feel full and it's going to help your blood sugar and all that. The remaining half of your plate, split in half again. 1/4 is your protein. So this could be your turkey, or if you're, someone who likes seafood at Thanksgiving, your seafood or steak or whatever it is that you're having. The remaining fourth is your carbohydrates. So that's your mashed potatoes. That's your what the potato casserole people have, your stuffing. I'm just thinking about it in terms of that. But what I like about this, and typically fat is like on the side, right? So your drizzle of gravy or your olive oil, your dressing for your salad, things like that. But what I like about this is it's very doable and it's like a puzzle, right? So you can go to any restaurant, any party, any, holiday, and you can build your plate according to this to allow you to feel your best self and to allow you to feel like you don't have to give up anything too, right? Like I'm not in the business of taking food away from people. I find I'm a very liberal dietitian and practitioner. But I want you to feel in control and allow you to reach your goals, right? And so I think that the plate method is a really simplistic way of being like, okay, I can still have my mashed potatoes, but I'm pairing them with my Brussels sprouts and my turkey to allow that blood sugar effect to be a little bit less and to feel like I am mindful about the portions which I'm having. So yeah, I typically will teach the plate method for people for anything really.
Mm. And I think too, I mean, I'm not a chef, so I can't really speak to this. However, making your own mashed potatoes or getting them from a source that you know what the ingredients are also plays such a huge role because if you get frozen mashed potatoes, you flip over the back, the amount of chemicals that's in there is horrible, right? So then that's going to affect everything else and how your body is feeling. So I think really, because like you said, yeah, it's like with food and how when you change your habits, you don't want to feel like you're taking away everything. But what we talked about before, the education piece, like knowing better options, right? Knowing what's in different things that you would never think about, or the amount of added sugar they throw in things, right? So then it's like your stuffing may have more sugar than your pumpkin pie when you think you're making a better, better choice.
Absolutely. I think that's such a good point. It's not about taking away the food, but it's about making the better options, right? And so if you aren't a chef, I'm also not a chef, finding healthier alternatives or finding someone who is a chef that can cook and sending them the recipes or, going to your local store, health food store, whoever that makes healthier alternatives, it's fantastic. And nobody needs to know. Like if you're trying to remain gluten free and you make a gluten free pumpkin pie for your family, do not tell them it's gluten free. Just bring it. Literally nobody needs to know except for the people that are truly gluten free. And that way they can enjoy it too. Right. And so I think it is like, it's such a misconception that these things are going to taste bad or poorly, but they're amazing. And you can make and you can buy awesome alternatives that have less processed oils, less sugar. You know, the food that you have sensitivities to, you don't include them, right? And I think that you're going to leave feeling so much better, but also feeling more in control because you're still managing to stay on track with your wellness goals.
I am very thankful that it is 2024. Like, yeah, 1990s, probably finding something good, gluten free, very hard. But now we have so many options that it all tastes very normal and honestly, sometimes better than the alternative.
100%. Before we had this podcast, I was telling you that I ordered gluten-free pie bites from this place in Florida, from West Palm Beach, and they look amazing. I have to send you the Instagram after this, but I'm just so excited. Oh, they look like so good. I know I need to bring you some. But they're like these mini gluten-free pie bites. They're like key lime pie and pumpkin and apple, and it's just like a bunch of them. But what I like is that I know that it's a reputable brand. I can see the ingredients on their website, and so yeah, there's going to be sugar in it, of course, it's a given. Yes. But I'm going to balance my plate. I'm going to make sure that I'm not overdoing on the dessert. I'm going to have the dessert right after my meal. So I have a little bit less of it, but also I have that, you know, protein and fiber already in my system. So I think it is like finding the alternatives that you feel comfortable with that are still going to allow you to feel in control of your goals. But still allow you to feel like you're included in the festivities and enjoying the food that you're eating.
Exactly. And your body knows how to metabolize sugar. Your body doesn't know how to metabolize fake sugars, inflammatory oils, the chemicals that are in different things. And so knowing like, okay, I want to give my body the best fighting chance. Like our bodies are incredible, but when we're inundated with so many different types of chemicals, then it's, starts slowing down your metabolism. You might have a headache, you might have digestion issues. So yeah, give me a gluten-free pie from this place. I know what's in it. Like,
They look so good. But you bring up such a good point. You know, I think if anything, just trying to eliminate the processed food. So even if you're not a chef, like we were talking about before, like go to Whole Foods, go somewhere that you feel comfortable with and buy it there. Because, you know, if you opt for store-bought packaged items, it's going to add those inflammatory oils and it's going to just increase the likelihood that you're not feeling great at the end.
exactly. Exactly.
I also think that on the blood sugar, you know, realm, I feel like taking a walk after your meal is one of the easiest, most helpful ways that you can feel better, digestively, you know, anxiety, mentally, all of it. It can really help reduce your blood sugar. So I think, you know, we all have that urge, especially Thanksgiving, to lay on the couch after we eat or sit on the couch, watch football, drink beers, whatever it is that you like to do, especially because turkey's high in tryptophan, right? Which will leave us feeling a little bit sleepy. But if we can, you know, really try to just get up, go for a walk for 5 minutes, help clean the dishes, help clean whatever it is, right? That all counts. And that's really helpful and really impactful for allowing you to feel a little bit better. Especially when it comes to digestion. You know, if we sit down right after a big meal, it's not going to be great for our bodies. So, yeah, I think just getting up, moving for a little bit, it doesn't have to be long, can be really helpful.
And two, if you walk outside, the fresh air.
Absolutely. And it will clear your mind. You can get some fresh air, even if it's cold out. Cold air is really good for our mitochondrial health. So for energy production. So even if it's cold out, bundle up, go outside. Even if it's for 5 minutes, it will really leave you feeling a lot better than if you just plop down on the couch, which I know is, you know, kind of the norm. And I can't lie, I've done it too because it's, you know, it's there. Yeah. Yeah. It's there. Everyone's doing it. But I think just in terms of like easy ways that you can stick to your health goals and leave feeling better, go for a walk, go outside.
And, when we're actually eating and sitting down at the table, you know, slowing down, not rushing through. Yes.
This is probably like the hardest thing to do. Holidays, at restaurants, at parties, slowing down and being mindful with what you're eating is so challenging, but it could be the most impactful thing that you do for your health, especially when it comes to your GI function and just digestion in general. Allowing, a couple of deep breaths in between bites, or putting down your fork, or really tuning into what you're eating and, slowing down, observing what you're eating, being grateful for it on the spirit of Thanksgiving. But I think just really slowing down could be so helpful. So tuning into being a little bit more mindful. So yeah.
I think also too, like throughout the day and before your meal, really focusing on hydration because so many times we can feel like we're starving, but we're really just dehydrated. So focusing on water intake, electrolytes if you drink those, or maybe you should add them this week, but really focusing on that hydration component.
Absolutely. And like if you're someone who takes supplements too to help, keep them up. Keep taking them, right? Don't like forget about them just this day or at the parties that you go to. I know it's hard to, bring supplements if you're going out to a holiday party or to dinner. But we're in the business of wanting you to feel as best as possible, right? And I'm sure everyone listening wants to feel as best as possible as well. And so I think just these little things like drinking more water, going for a walk, bringing your supplements, like these are all things that people can do that isn't going to take a whole lot of time or effort or change your routine drastically. So, I just think keeping up with the things that are helping you is really important and needs to be said. I know it might sound like, yes, very basic, but I feel like a lot of times people forget when they go out, they forget their supplements or they forget to drink more water. And then they'll end up drinking more alcohol, and then that will dehydrate them even more. And then they'll have more sugar, which will dehydrate them even more, so it's just kind of like um, a, a circle that we need to break with the things that make us feel good.
Exactly. And bringing up alcohol, what are your thoughts, tips, tricks on alcohol during the holidays?
I like to recommend sometimes people develop what I like to call as an alcohol bank. And this kind of goes hand in hand with like moderation, right? So, if someone comes to me and they're like, I really want to start decreasing my alcohol, I'll be like, all right, well, how many, do you typically have a night? What's your weekly count? Like, whatever. We'll have a conversation around that. And I'll then subtract a couple from that. And I'll be like, all right, this will be your weekly or daily alcohol bank, depending on, how often they drink or what their MO is. But I think we could still take that to holidays too. So if you're someone who doesn't necessarily count how many drinks you have at the holidays or parties, and you're estimating around like 8 plus, what I would say then is try to set your alcohol bank at like 5. And this could be, spread out however you want. And this is kind of where it goes into like the moderation thing. So I'll be like, you can choose the drinks that you want, and you can spread them out however you see fit, but do not go above your alcohol bank. Obviously 5 is a big number. I don't typically work with people who have that high alcohol banks, but I know my family too. We like to drink. I'm saying I'm not a big drinker, but we like to drink. And sometimes you can get carried away, especially at parties if you're not paying attention. So I think going in with an expectation for yourself too. So if you're like, I really want to stick to 3 drinks, which I think is a more reasonable alcohol limit. I'm saying I really want to stick to 3 drinks. Track them and hold yourself accountable. I think that it can get, you can get, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, off track really easy with alcohol. Because it's like a social thing. They might taste good to you. You get in that alcohol phase and then you forget to track and you just keep going. So I think really setting yourself up with expectations, with reasonable expectations too, right? If you go in and you say, I'm not going to have any drinks today, but you typically will have like 5 drinks plus, that might be a little bit, it might not be so realistic. So be realistic with yourself, but hold yourself accountable and set those, those limits and try to stick to them as best as possible. I'm also a big believer in like mocktails. And so I think finding something that tastes good that's not water, or like a soda or something could be really helpful for you to stick to your goals. I'm a big mocktail girl, so I'll have like seltzer and bitters or, a little bit of cranberry juice in my seltzer or something like that, especially at holiday parties. So I feel like I still have a drink in my hand. I'm still like engaging in the activity, but I'm not consuming alcohol. So, and I know that there's a ton of like non-alcoholic beverages now on the market. So if you want something a little bit more fancy, you could always buy something, but you could also make yourself something like a kombucha mocktail or something like that, or just the actual drink itself without alcohol. So if you're a big espresso martini person, maybe make it without the alcohol. So I think you could always modify it to have less alcohol too.
Okay, you have a cup in your hand. No one knows the difference. You feel good the next morning and you can go work out, right? But also too, like knowing different options, like picking drinks with lower sugar content, not putting mixers in, grabbing a champagne, a clear liquor, right? I think really can make a difference too.
Absolutely. And that just takes it one step further, right? It's like, okay, first set the limit or the expectations that A, you're not going to drink or you're going to have a lot less, and then choose wisely, right? Making sure that you are opting for the better choices is always recommended. But I think it's, setting yourself up for that also, and those limits, and becoming aware of how much you're drinking too is always important. I find that a lot of people don't know, when I ask like, well, how many drinks do you have a night, they're like, I don't know, maybe like 6, 7. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we should track for one night. And I know it's hard, but the awareness creates that knowledge, right? And that those boundaries to be set. And I think, just like anything, awareness is always the first step. So becoming aware of how much you're drinking and then decreasing from there, setting those boundaries and choosing wisely.
And kind of touched on it, but we can't talk about being feeling good during the holidays without talking about sleep.
I think that it gets away from us a lot of times in the holidays, especially like parties. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand with drinking, but not always. You don't have to drink and still lose out on sleep. I'm a perfect example of that. And when it comes to the holidays, typically staying up a little bit later or, going to parties that are a little bit later than your bedtime typically is. And so I think, yes, for the most part, if these nights are just like one-offs once in a while, you get back to your habits of sleeping pretty easy, but don't let it be an everyday thing, right? I think just like everything, you have your typical routine that feels good and that you like to stick to, and try your best to stick to that. And even if that means waking up early and going to work out, if you have that in the back of your head already, like you said before, you're less likely to overdo it at night when it comes to food or alcohol or staying up later, right? So I think it's just like everything else, really having these habits and sticking to them as best as possible. When it comes to wellness, I feel like developing those habits, awareness and developing those habits are the first steps, right? And that way you're more likely to stick to them during the holiday season, and it won't leave you feeling derailed or, like crap afterwards.
Right. Yeah, because without sleep, then you're gonna crave more sugar. You're not gonna feel the best. So I think it starts with awareness, like understanding why sleep is important, and then understanding, yeah, we may not all get the best sleep, but then understanding, okay, why am I craving more sugar? Why am I feeling like this? And just back to that consistency thing, trying to get those 8 hours of sleep as much as possible.
Absolutely. I think I brought this, I don't remember if I brought this up to you before the podcast started or during it, but if you're eating really late at night too, this really can throw off sleep. And so yes, like you were saying before, the awareness piece, right? Like, well, why do I feel so crappy? Maybe you ate, that second piece of pumpkin pie at 10 o'clock at night, and then you decided to go to bed at 10:30, right? Or maybe you had a lot more alcohol throughout the day, and that's going to interrupt your sleep. So I think it's, yes, understanding why, but be being mindful about it. So maybe don't have, food right before you go to bed, because we know that's not going to be helpful from a sleep perspective and a recovery perspective. And it will leave you feeling like really groggy in the morning, probably a little bit more anxious, a little bit more sluggish. And your digestion is going to be down because it's trying to process that pumpkin pie that you just ate. So I think it all, yes, it's so cyclical, and everything kind of comes full circle. So becoming aware, understanding the why, and then making those clear decisions and those choices to prevent you feeling like that.
And I think to add on to the digestion, knowing that it takes 4 hours for your gut to digest your food. And so maybe you can't get a full 4 hours on Thanksgiving, right? Because you're going to one family to the next, but like say at least 2 hours, right? But knowing that okay, it takes 4 hours for my food to digest, fully, finish the digestion process. So I'm trying to give those, breaks even if it's an hour, right? Like giving those breaks to your digestive system to help your body, metabolize and use that food and then digest.
Yep. Exactly. And that kind of goes back to being mindful, right? During your meal, you can still be mindful between meals too. I think giving yourself a solid 2, 3 hours between meals, which I know might be difficult during the holidays, but it's one of the easiest and best choices that you can make for your body to digest the food properly and to leave you feeling better. And then, it will help keep you on track with your wellness goals, whether it is, weight loss or optimized digestion or whatever it is. All of these steps really lead into you feeling like you are still headed in the right direction with your wellness goals. So, and that's my ideal of like a perfect holiday is staying on track while still enjoying the parties, still enjoying the food, but feeling in control and, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Like steadfast in your decisions. Like you know what you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think just making the conscious effort and becoming aware and, making these little decisions to stay on track, stick to your habits as best as possible that you've developed. Take your supplements, take a walk, drink water. Nothing is rocket science here, but really trying to choose better options and, portioning them out, taking deep breaths, waiting between your meals. Like these are really good steps that people can take to leave them feeling good post holiday meal.
And like you said, like these are basics. Like I think a lot of times in life, but especially with wellness, health, nutrition, people try to make it so complicated when it really is. Yeah, when it really is simple and we each can make it to fit into your life. Like that's what we always talk about. Like just you, at optimal bio, just in general. We want everything to be a lifestyle for someone and it be part of your life, not like adding more stress or feeling restricted is really basics of what it makes sense and what your body will feel good with as well.
Absolutely. I always say like go back to the basics, right? Whether it is sleep optimization or exercise or nutrition, nothing should feel like it is super overwhelming or stressful. It's not going to stick if that's the case. And that's why these like, restrictive diets don't work is because they are really hard and complicated. And, it's less likely that people are going to stick to those things. And exercise too, if people don't enjoy it and it's overly complicated, they're not going to do it. And that's why I think it is just like developing those habits, finding what works for you and sticking to the basics.
Yeah, I think that's great. Anything else you want to add about the holidays? Or just
I think we covered, the gist of it. I feel like really developing those habits. If you don't have them developed already, try to pick a couple that you think are going to be helpful, like taking a walk and drinking more water, But for those of us who do have these habits already developed, it is okay to stick to them. Don't let people get in your head. Don't let society and the holiday channels tell you the otherwise. You are able to stick to the things that make you feel the best. And don't let your Aunt Karen tell you otherwise. You're doing great. Try to choose healthier options, stick to the foods that make you feel your best. go for walks, talk it out with me. You can email me, anything like that if you need somebody to coach you through it. But yeah, I think habits are there for a reason and they're helpful.
Hit the nail on the head. Just stick to the basics. It's just another day. You know what makes you feel well. And why do you want to feel bad? Because you're not going to enjoy the holidays and you're supposed to enjoy them.
And you can absolutely still enjoy the holidays while sticking to the things that make you feel good. I think we're perfect examples of that. So, don't feel like you have to throw in the towel for being gluten free or, your exercise or whatever, just because you're having a holiday party. You can do all those things and still have a great time. So, yeah, I think that's it. Everyone have a happy holiday.
Thank you. This has been a production of Optimal Bio. Optimal Bio is CEO Tyler Brandon, Medical Director Greg Brandon, podcast host Tyler Brandon, production assistance by Core Media, Beth Grabencourt, Administrator, Kevin Duthu, Executive Producer. The podcast can be found on our website, optimalbio.com, on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Our theme song is Sunwave by Paradiso, provided by Epidemic Sound.